Welcome, night owls. Welcome back to Midnight FM, where the silence of the night is filled with stories that should never be forgotten. Tonight, we are joined once again by Grandpa Joseph. He's taken us through haunted woods, cursed farmhouses, and hollow fields where the scarecrows whisper. But tonight's story is different. Tonight, he takes us to a place that should have been safe. A summer camp by a lake in Maine. Clear waters, campfires, laughter of children. But beneath the surface, something else waited. Locals called it the stranger by the lake. And once you saw it, you could never forget. Grandpa Joseph, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Jacob. This one never leaves me. I've seen things in my life that no man should see, but there's something about water that makes it worse. Because water, it reflects, and sometimes what you see in that reflection isn't yourself. Sometimes it's something waiting. I was 16 when it happened, the summer of 1961. My parents had sent me to stay with Aunt May and Uncle Howard in Maine. They lived near a quiet little lake surrounded by pine woods about 5 miles outside of town. It wasn't a big place, just a scattering of cabins, a dock, and a boathouse where kids went fishing. For me, it was meant to be a break, a summer of swimming, fishing, and campfires. And at first, that's all it was. But then, I heard the story. The locals called it the stranger. No one knew where it came from. Some said it was the spirit of a drowned man. Others said it was older, something that lived in the water long before people came. The rule was simple. After midnight, you don't go near the lake, not the dock, not the shore, not even the boathouse, because that's when the stranger comes. Tall, thin, silent, standing at the water's edge, waiting. Of course, to a 16-year-old boy, it sounded nothing more than a ghost story, a way to scare kids, keep them from sneaking out at night. But my cousin Henry, he believed it. Henry was a year younger than me, but he'd grown up with those stories. He swore he'd seen the stranger once, just a glimpse. Said it was a man, but wrong somehow. Said its reflection in the water didn't match the way it stood on land. I laughed it off, told him he'd just been dreaming. But then one night, late in July, I saw it for myself. It was hot that night, too hot to sleep. The air was thick, the kind of heat that makes the sheets cling to you. So I slipped outside, hoping for a breeze by the lake. The moon was high, silver on the water. The dock stretched out quiet, boards creaking under the weight of nothing but age. And at the far end, I saw it. A man, tall, thin, wearing something pale that fluttered in the breeze. He stood at the very edge of the dock, his back to me, staring down at the lake. My first thought was that it must be Uncle Howard checking on the boats, but something about the way he stood, too stiff, too still, made my stomach twist. I called out, "Uncle?" The figure didn't move, didn't even flinch, just stood there, staring into the lake. I stepped closer, slow, the boards groaning under my weight, and that's when I saw its reflection. The figure stood upright on the dock, But in the water, its reflection was bent, crooked. Its head tilted back at an angle no human could manage. Its mouth stretched wide in a silent scream. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. The figure turned then, slow, deliberate. And though his face was shadowed by the moonlight, I knew it wasn't my uncle. The head was too long, the arms too thin, and the eyes, God help me, the eyes glowed pale, like fish scales catching light beneath the surface. I ran, didn't look back, didn't stop until I was inside the cabin, the door bolted, my chest heaving. I told myself it had been a trick of the light, exhaustion, heat. But when I looked out the window, the dock was empty, and the water rippled, though no wind blew. The next morning I told Henry what I'd seen. His face went white, and he just nodded. "That's him," he whispered. "The stranger." For the rest of the summer, I stayed away from the lake at night. But the stranger wasn't done with me, because once you see him, he sees you too. After that night, I couldn't shake it. The image of that twisted reflection clung to me like a burr. I told myself it wasn't real, just a trick of the light, my mind playing games. But deep down I knew better, and so did Henry. The morning after, we sat on the cabin porch. Henry leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice low. "You saw him, didn't you?" I didn't want to answer, didn't want to give it power, but my silence was enough. Henry nodded, his face pale. "He watches. I told you. Once he knows your face, he doesn't stop." That day I couldn't enjoy anything. The sunlight on the water looked different, too bright, too sharp. Every ripple made me jump. Every shadow beneath the surface felt like something waiting. I didn't swim, didn't fish. I just sat by the trees, watching the lake, feeling it watching me back. That night, the whisper started. Not words at first, just a sound like the lake itself was sighing. Long, soft pulling at the edge in my mind. But then I heard my name, Joseph, drowned out, muffled like it came from under the water. I jolted awake, heart pounding. The cabin was dark, Henry snoring softly beside me. The sound came again. "Joseph!" I looked toward the window. The curtains stirred, and beyond them the silver glint of moonlight on water. I crept closer, every step heavier than the last, pulled the curtain back just an inch, and there he was. At the shoreline this time, not the dock. Tall, still, head tilted toward the cabin. His reflection shimmered in the rippling water. But it wasn't the same. On land, he stood motionless. In the water, his reflection crept closer, step by step, until its hands pressed against the surface like glass. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over Henry's cot. When I looked again, both shore and reflection were empty. The next morning, I told Henry. He just looked at me with hollow eyes. "He wants you now," he whispered. The days grew heavier after that. I couldn't focus, couldn't laugh with the other kids. Even in daylight, the lake felt wrong. Birds wouldn't land on it, fish wouldn't bite. And sometimes, when the sun was high, I thought I saw a figure beneath the water, just below the surface, watching. Then came the first disappearance. A boy named Charlie. He was 12, quiet, one of the younger campers. He went out fishing in a rowboat one morning. Never came back. The boat was found drifting, tackle box still inside, line dangling in the water. But no Charlie. The sheriff searched the lake for 2 days. Nothing. Not a splash, not a body. The adults said it must have been an accident. But I knew better. So did Henry. That night, as the sun sank, he grabbed my arm and whispered, "It was him. The stranger took him." I tried to tell myself Henry was wrong, that it was an accident. But then more whispers came. This time, not just my name, other words, faint, slipping through the cracks in my mind. "Come closer, come to the water." I covered my ears, but it didn't help. The voice wasn't outside, it was inside me. One night, Henry and I stayed awake to get her. We sat by the window, waiting. The moon was full, painting the lake silver. And right on cue, he appeared. At the end of the dock, tall, thin, arms hanging too long, head cocked like a bird watching prey. But this time, something was different. He wasn't alone anymore. There was another figure beside him. Small, thin, its head bent low. At first I thought it was another man, but then I saw the clothes. A striped shirt. Charlie's shirt. Henry gasped beside me. We watched frozen as the boy's figure turned slowly toward us. His face was pale, lips blue, and his eyes empty, gone. The stranger tilted his head, placing a long, bony hand on his shoulder. And then, as we watched, both figures stepped forward into the water. They didn't sink, they didn't splash, they simply melted into the surface and were gone. Henry grabbed my arm so tight it hurt. "You see now," he hissed, "he takes them, and he's coming for us." After Charlie disappeared, everything changed. The camp was quieter. The laughter of kids was gone, replaced with whispers and worried looks. Parents came to collect their children early. By the end of the week, only a few families remained, mine among them.
I begged my aunt to let us leave, told her I didn't feel safe, but she just shook her head. "The sheriff will find the boy," she said. "You've let these stories get to you, but I knew it wasn't stories. I'd seen the stranger with my own eyes, and I knew Charlie wasn't coming back. Henry and I couldn't stay inside anymore. The cabin walls felt too thin, the windows too weak. Every night we stayed awake together, listening, and every night the stranger came. Sometimes at the dock, sometimes at the shoreline. Once, God help me, right outside the cabin window. I woke to the sound of tapping, soft, rhythmic. I thought it was a branch at first, but when I opened my eyes, I saw him standing outside the glass, face inches away, pale in the moonlight, one long finger tapping against the pane. Tap, tap, tap. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The reflection in the glass was worse. In the glass, his face was stretched, mouth wide open, lips curling back as if screaming. But outside, he was silent, still, watching. I shut my eyes, pulled the blanket over my head, and prayed. When I opened them again, he was gone. But the tapping, it echoed in my dreams. 2 nights later, another boy vanished. Sam. He'd gone to fetch water from the lake at dusk. They found the pail, half full, lying at the shore, but no Sam. That was when Uncle Howard finally admitted it. I overheard him whispering with Aunt May. "This lake, it isn't right," he said. "Never was. Folks have been vanishing here for decades. They say it's just accidents, drownings, but I've seen things." His voice dropped low. "The stranger takes them." Aunt May tried to hush him, but the truth was out. And Henry and I knew we were next, because the stranger wasn't just taking kids at random. He was calling my name. That night, Henry shook me awake. His face was pale, his eyes wide. "Joe," he whispered, "he's out there." I followed his gaze to the window, and sure enough, there he was, standing at the end of the dock. But this time, he wasn't alone. There were 3 figures with him, all pale, their eyes blank, their movements jerky. And one of them was Charlie. He turned his head slowly toward us, his mouth moving. I couldn't hear the words through the glass, but I could read them. "Come with us." Henry whimpered beside me. "We have to leave tonight before he takes it too." And I knew he was right.
We packed in silence. A few clothes, a flashlight, Uncle Howard's old hunting knife, and we waited. Waited until Aunt May and Uncle Howard were asleep. Waited until the moon was high. Then we slipped out the back. The woods pressed close around us, branches clawing, the night alive with crickets and owls. But beneath it all was another sound. The water, sloshing, whispering, pulling at us. We stuck to the path, heading toward town, but the farther we walked, the more I felt it, the pull, like invisible hands tugging at my chest, dragging me sideways toward the lake. Henry grabbed my arm. "Don't look," he whispered, but I couldn't help it. Through the trees, I saw the silver glow of water, and standing at the edge, the stranger. His pale eyes locked on mine. He lifted one long arm and pointed straight at me.
The ground tilted beneath me. I stumbled, falling to my knees. The pull grew stronger. My ears filled with rushing water, drowning out Henry's voice. All I could hear was the stranger. Joseph. Henry dragged me, shaking me, shouting in my ear, "Don't listen, don't look." I tried, God, I tried, but the harder I fought, the stronger it became. It felt like the whole lake was inside my skull, sloshing, whispering, drowning me. And then, silence. I opened my eyes. The stranger was gone. The lake was still, but I knew he wasn't finished. Not yet. We made it back to the cabin before dawn, collapsed on the floor, gasping, shaking. Neither of us slept. We just sat there staring at the window, waiting for the tapping to start again. And just as sure enough, just as the sun began to rise, it came. Tap, tap, tap. The tapping never stopped that morning. Even with the sun climbing high, it lingered in my ears. Tap, 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 like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. Uncle Howard tried to calm us, said it was tree branches or loose shutters, but Henry and I knew better. The stranger wasn't bound by night. He'd marked us, and he was waiting. That night I couldn't take it anymore. I told Henry we had to end it one way or another. He looked at me like I was crazy, but the truth is, fear will drive a man to foolish things. And at 16, I was both scared and foolish. We snuck out again, this time with Uncle Howard's knife and a lantern. The woods were still, the lake shimmered silver, and at the end of the dock, as if he'd been waiting all along, the stranger stood, tall, silent, watching. We walked to the edge of the shore, every step heavy as stone. Henry clutched my arm so tight my skin burned. "Joe," he whispered, "don't go closer." But I couldn't stop. The stranger's eyes pinned me in place, like hooks sinking deep in my chest. "I take you back," he said. His voice was a deep rumble like underground thunder.
The reflection in the water twisted. On the dock, he stood still, but in the water, his reflection leaned forward, closer, closer, until its face nearly broke the surface. Mouth open, teeth black, a scream I couldn't hear stretching wide. I raised the lantern. "Why me?" I shouted. My voice cracked, but I forced the words out. "Why are you here? What do you want?" The stranger didn't answer, but the water did. Ripples spread, dark and wide, and from beneath them, hands rose. Dozens of pale, bloated hands, grabbing, clawing. The faces of the missing children surfaced. Charlie, Sam, more I didn't know, all staring at me. Henry screamed, pulling me back, but the water pulled harder. The stranger's reflection reached up, its fingers brushing the air between us, and for a moment,
I leaned forward. I wanted to go, wanted the whispers to stop, wanted the pull to end. But then, the lantern slipped from my hand. It crashed against the dock, oil spilling, flames spreading. The wood caught fast, fire racing across the boards. The stranger didn't move, didn't flinch, but his reflection, it shrieked, twisting, writhing, faces boiling in the water. The hands let go, sinking back beneath the surface, and the pull snapped. Henry dragged me away as the dock burned, smoke curling into the night. We collapsed on the shore, coughing, crying, too weak to move. When I looked back, the stranger was gone. The lake was empty, silent. But I knew fire hadn't destroyed him, just driven him back. By morning, the dock was ash. The adults called it an accident. They never asked why Henry and I smelled of smoke. They didn't want the truth, and neither did I. We left the cabin a week later. I never went back, but I know he's still there, waiting at that lake, waiting for someone to look too long. Because once you see the stranger, he sees you too, and he never forgets.
You've been listening to Midnight FM, and that was Grandpa Joseph with The Stranger by the Lake. A lakeside summer meant for peace and laughter turned into a nightmare of whispers and reflections. A stranger who lingers in the water, claiming the lost and marking those who dare to look. It makes you wonder, how many ripples on a still lake are just the wind, and how many are hands reaching up, waiting to pull you in? We thank Grandpa Joseph for his courage to tell this story. And to you, night owls, thank you for keeping vigil with us through another hour of shadows. Remember, the next time you see a figure standing at the water's edge, don't get closer. And whatever you do, don't look into the reflection. This is Jacob, signing off from Midnight FM.